But while we continue to get everything set up with the technology, I can go ahead and get us started. And like I said before, you're in the right spot if you have a senior and you are trying to help them navigate this wonderful process of college applications. So we have a limited amount of time before we have to turn this over to our administrators to start the regular back to school night activities. But we're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that it's cool enough. And we're here to just really kind of help you wrap your heads around a process that we hope will not be overwhelming. There's a lot of information, we know that. And so our goal is to help your senior to navigate this with the least amount of stress as possible, helping them to be organized, helping them to stay up to date with things. So it's really a partnership at this point. It's a partnership of us explaining to them what we need from them, us explaining to you what we need from them so that you can stay on them about what we need from them. And hopefully together we get through all of this without too many more gray hairs. So I'll start by saying Mrs. Mitchell, Nikki Mitchell, one of the counselors here at Claremont High School. And Mr. Trosh, we're good to, okay, perfect. You can see up on the screen the alphabet breakdown. Most of you who have seniors, unless they're brand new, you know your child's counselor. Ms. Bergson Vogel's students are being covered happily by the rest of our department. So we've broken them down in alphabetical little increments also. So no child is unseen. And if you are one of her students, you can see any one of us, but you can see whose part of the alphabet you fall under. So there are lots of slides. The good thing is we're going to breeze through some of them quickly because this is up online, or it will be later this evening. You'll be able to refer back to it. You can, it'll make more sense maybe after Friday or even after next week once you've seen your students one-on-one. So it'll be there for you. We're going to really hit the key points that we want you to understand so that you can help them understand things that are coming up. So these are all the things that we're doing to help. And you can see the dates listed here. Financial aid night is October 27th. We also have our college fair back in person, yay, not on Zoom anymore. And that will be on October 20th. And even for seniors who are applying to colleges and they think they know exactly where they want to go, we encourage them to come out to the college fair. We will be hosting college application labs in the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's going to start October 4th. And we usually cover a full month or month and a half of being available to the students so that as they're working on their applications, they can, if they run into problems, they can come and see us. We do these things preventatively so that they don't get stuck by themselves the day before the deadline, not knowing what to do. So the most prepared seniors are the ones who come in with their questions in early October, so they're not crying in November. Also, we have college representative visits that are ongoing in the library. So students do need to check school links, and I think on our school website also, different dates that we have representatives here to talk to them. Also, as early as Monday or Tuesday of next week, we will start senior credit check. So what's going to happen after tonight is this. You're going to go home and you're going to say, I'm so excited. So much good stuff is coming up for you guys. Your counselor is going to see you in your classes on Friday. So this is kind of the precursor to our classroom visits. We're going to spend time with them in their social science classes on Friday, going over very similar information. We're going to give them a lot of details. But again, we're not going to just leave them high and dry. So they can come and ask us questions, but we want them to pay attention on Friday when we explain certain things to them. And after that, starting next Tuesday, they will cycle through the library to see us so that we can do an individual credit check. At that time, we will give them a copy of their unofficial transcript because they're going to need that when they're filling out applications. We'll also go over their credit so that they know that they're in the classes that they need, and we'll be able to kind of get a sense or get a pulse of where they're thinking of applying, what their college list is starting to look like. Okay, so getting started. These are some tips for them to remember as they're starting this process. So number one, we want to remind them to use an email address that is appropriate. Usually something that involves their real name is most appropriate, maybe not a nickname, and something that will outlive their time here at CHS. So some students use their CHS email, not realizing that in the days that follow graduation, they don't have access to that anymore. So as they're communicating with their colleges, universities, scholarship committees, employers, so forth, they want to use an email address that will outlive their time here. We want them to continue to check school links, and we send reminds, and we know there's a lot of information we send them, but it just takes a few seconds for them to look at it so they can know that they're on the right track, okay? Like I said before, they're gonna get a copy of their unofficial transcript. That's gonna help them navigate filling out applications. Official transcripts, which we'll talk about later, we will send directly to universities. So I have no problem when my students take that unofficial transcript and make a photocopy of it themselves in case they lose it, because they need it as a working copy when they're filling out apps. They really need to be organized. The best thing you can do for them is perhaps get a family calendar that's somewhere that's kind of public for the family to see, so that key dates, whether it's college deadlines, scholarship deadlines, CHS deadlines, counseling deadlines they need to adhere to, so that you can help them stay aware of what's coming up. All right, so finding a balanced final list. We've been working with them since they were freshmen. We know that got a bit interrupted with COVID, but we again hit it really, really hard last year when they were juniors. And some of you may have even attended our virtual junior information night in January of this year, because that was kind of our starting point of saying, you're still going to be seniors. Let's start talking about different types of schools. Then we spent a large part of the spring working with them, doing credit checks, having workshops explaining how to make a college list, how to find a good fit school, looking for scholarships. So we've been doing a lot of things over the past few months. Many of you might not know that because they may not have come home and talked about it, but we've been offering that to them for the past several months. So we understand that now that it's upon them, some of them are just starting to awaken to the idea of, I've got to get ready for college. So these are some things that we want them to consider as they are thinking about the kind of schools that they're going to apply to. I would add to this that they don't have to accept a college decision until May 1st. They have many, many months to decide where they're going to go to school, but they have a limited amount of time to decide where they're going to apply. That application season starts now. So it really is important for them to take this seriously so that they're looking at schools that are a good fit, schools that match the distance that they want to go from home, schools that match their performance so far. What is their GPA looking like in terms of the schools that they're thinking of applying to? Helping them to be realistic about their choices. Because when they meet with their counselor, we're going to be asking to see their list. They're going to upload that into school links. And we want to make sure that they have a lot of smart choices and realistic choices, as well as the reach schools that they may put on their list as well. So a little bit about specific applications. Most of our students, or many of them who apply to four-year colleges, will apply to their UC campuses, of which there are 9 undergraduate campuses. Their application is completely online. It is its own application. So we'll talk a little bit about the Common App later, but the UC application is specific for UC campuses. They opened their window to August 1st. We did that, I think, a few years ago, but the actual submission window is open to October 1st. So students who have been working on their UC application, they can actually submit it as early as, well, we're in the dark, as early as October 1st. And they have between October 1st and November 30th to actually apply, okay? Please note the applications after November 30th are blocked, okay? So students who think they can wait until the last minute, they cannot do that. The system will crash. This is my 23rd year here. I have not known a year where it did not crash. So they really need to adhere to these deadlines. And I see as a rule of thumb, if they are going into their Thanksgiving break, having completed their UC application, they're in good shape and they can enjoy a nice Thanksgiving without a lot of stress. Some tips about the UC application process, and really quickly, just make sure that they're honest and thorough in everything that they do. One thing I want to point out is they're going to hear the term PIQ. We're going to refer to that a lot. Any students here know what that means, PIQ? Those are the personal insight questions. We have links on our website. You'll be given some direct links to watch the tutorials on how to write your PIQs. So the UC application will require students to submit 4 responses to personal insight questions. They have a total of 8 to choose from. They choose 4. We're going to provide them some links so they can learn how to do that effectively with 350 words. All right. Now the CSU system. This is our other public school system in which there are 23 campuses. And again, many of our students who apply to the UCs will also be applying to Cal States. It's also a totally online application process. It's separate from the UC, but it's all online. And their application window, fortunately, is the same as the UC application window. So they can submit between October 1st and November 30th. And again, there's no November 31, so they need to really adhere to that window. These are just a few quick tips about the CSU application. They do not have to provide any essays or personal insight questions for the Cal State application, but it's still wise for them to work on it early, because it never fails that students will input things and they'll say, you know, Mrs. Mitchell, for some reason, it wouldn't let me go to the next question. So they'll have to troubleshoot some things when they're uploading from their transcript. So again, the earlier they work on this, the more they can take advantage of the help that we have available for them on campus. So there are some things that when they're filling out the application, even though it can become a long process, we don't want them to overlook. So there are just a few terms that we want to make sure that you're aware of. One of those is EOP, Educational Opportunity Program. The UC and the Cal State application has the EOP program on their sites, and that's a program in which some students will qualify based on financial situation, if they are underrepresented group on that campus. Usually there are questions embedded in the application that will allow a student to say whether they're interested in EOP. Some students just get tired of answering questions and they bypass things, not realizing you're bypassing something that you might qualify for. And so there's some really valuable reasons for them to make sure that they're paying attention. Now, another term that they'll see is the Western Undergraduate Exchange, which we call a WUI. And just note that there are some out-of-state schools that will have a very favorable financial agreement, that they'll treat our students as in-state residents in terms of the tuition. And that's an agreement that some schools have, and sometimes it's specific to a certain major. So when students are applying or looking at schools that they're considering, just be aware of this as an option to see if it's one of the schools that belongs to the Western Undergraduate Exchange. And you can go to the website for more information. All right, private colleges. So these are terms, again, that we want the students to be familiar with. Some of them already are asking about these terms, but just know that there are 4 major types of applications. Students can apply early decision, early action, regular decision, or rolling admission. Early decision is binding, it's a decision. So that means if a student is really set on a certain school, maybe they've been looking at that school for years, maybe they've done some research opportunities in the summer, or there's a real draw for them to go to that particular campus, and they're feeling really certain about that, then that's a student who might decide, you know what, I'm gonna apply early decision. Because they turn their application in early to those schools, they are looked at earlier, and it shows a demonstrated amount of interest in that campus. So it can be favorable for a student who is a good candidate, that they may be looked at a little more favorably if they apply early decision. It's not a guarantee at all, but that's what that means. They can only apply to one school early decision. Early action is non-binding. So it's an action that they take, but it's not a binding action. They can usually apply to multiple schools early action. Regular decision is most common. That means a student is not sure where they want to go. They want to go places equally, and they say, you know what, I don't want to turn in my application by November 1st. I need more time. Regular decision is a very common application style in which students apply. And rolling admissions, you'll notice that some schools allow a window. So there's not a hard, fast deadline, but they give a window of time in which a student can turn in their application. So some other terms just so you're familiar with, HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. We don't have any on the West Coast, but in the South and on the East Coast, there are several HBCUs that offer unique programs for students who are interested. And likewise, when students are researching colleges, they will notice the term HSI, Hispanic Serving Institutions. So these are institutions that have a certain percentage of Hispanic students that the university is encouraging students to consider if that's an important quality that they're looking for in terms of where they're going to be served in terms of their academics and their social growth. Okay, the common application. This one is very, very popular because so many universities and colleges utilize this. So if your son or daughter is applying to a college that's private, most likely they can use the Common App. There are a few schools that don't allow the Common App and they have a very specific application, but get very familiar with this website because this will give you all the different colleges and universities that adhere to the Common Application. A few more details about the Common App. Students are generally expected to submit an essay. There's an optional COVID question if there is information that the student needs to share that better explains their situation. There are smart questions embedded. So that means depending on how they answer certain questions, it may prompt other questions in that application, and they may ask for supplements. The Common Application is, it's one application, but schools that adhere to that Common App might have supplemental things for their particular college. So again, as students are researching their colleges and universities, they want to see if it's a school that adheres to the Common App. The Coalition app is a bit newer, and there are a growing number of schools that do use the Coalition app. Most of our students still adhere to that Common App, but we have some students who will apply via the Coalition app. Very similar in a lot of ways. There are only a couple of schools, I think only one that's listed here, that actually specifies the Coalition app as their source of application or applying. But again, Common App tends to be a bit more common, but you will see this referred to as well. Now, as I said before, there are some colleges and universities that have their own application, in particular Georgetown and MIT, I think APU as well. I thought that they may have shifted to the Common App, but no, they're still their own application, I think. So again, this is part of that research. I always tell students, when you are creating your college list, you need to list the schools that you're applying to, you need to list the deadlines of those schools, and make a note. Is this a school that uses the Common App? What's the application fee? Do they take supplemental items? Do they take interviews? Some colleges will do a Zoom interview depending on the selectivity of that campus. So again, having a systematic way for them to keep track of a lot of these details makes it a lot easier of a process. And I think that's the cutoff. I'm going to shift over to Ms. Cizik.
Not quite as tall. Let me move this down. Well, good evening. First, I do want to remind you, I know Mrs. Mitchell said this in the beginning, but I just want to remind you that this presentation, as well as the streaming of this presentation, will be on our website. I see some of you taking pictures. I know we've given a lot of valuable information as well as different links. So please know you can find that if you go to the CHS website and then under the counseling tab, okay? So the next 3 slides will cover letters of recommendation. I'm not going to go into great detail about letters of recommendation because the counselors, we will be going into senior classrooms this Friday, and we're going to give them the step-by-step details on how to request a letter of recommendation, how to complete the counselor questionnaire, as well as the teacher questionnaire. But the first question is, do students even need a letter of recommendation? Most private colleges require a letter of recommendation, but not all of them. As Mrs. Mitchell had mentioned earlier, the next step for students is really compiling that list, coming up with that final list of what schools am I going to apply to. Once they have that list, that's where it's important for them to start looking at the requirements. Do I need a letter of recommendation? What other application materials are they looking for? Okay, so that's really the first question. The other thing that I want to mention is that letters of recommendation are not required, nor are they read by the UCs or the Cal States. Students often think, well, you know what, I'll go ahead and send one anyway. I can tell you they're not going to read them. They don't have readers to cover all of those letters of rec, so they will not accept them. So once again, UCs and Cal States do not require, nor will they accept letters of recommendation. It's primarily private schools, but once again, you have to look specifically at the schools you're applying to see if they even require a letter of recommendation. Okay. All letter of recommendation materials must be submitted through the process by Monday, September 26th. Now you may wonder, why would we do that on a Monday? Well, we used to have it on a Friday, and we found a lot of students would say, but I wish I just had the weekend. So we've moved it to Monday on that September 26th. So once again, all letters of recommendation are due on September 26th. Okay, private college application tips. Many of these tips will be similar to the ones Mrs. Mitchell mentioned earlier. If you need a letter of recommendation, I encourage you, spend some quality time working on the teacher questionnaire, the counselor questionnaire. The more information that you provide in that questionnaire, it helps your teacher, it helps your counselor to write the best letter possible. So don't wait to the last minute and all of a sudden decide, I'm going to work on that questionnaire and then turn it in. We really want you to be thoughtful in that process, your students to be thoughtful before they submit their letter of rec materials. You also want to make note of campus and major specific requirements when applying. Okay, and lastly, and this goes for all schools, you must email your counselor and teacher recommenders if you add a college after you've submitted your recommendation materials. So let's say your student, they're ahead of the game, they submit their letter of recommendation materials on September 24th. But on that September 26th, they decide, you know what, I've decided I want to add 2 more schools. You need to email your counselor as well as your teacher recommenders to let them know, hey, I've added a couple more schools, I've added them in school links, I just wanted to let you know. Okay, next we're going to move on to essays and interviews. The essays, this is really important, should really be in the student's voice. We want them to provide meaningful details to tell their story, okay? Really think about, and once again, don't wait to the last minute. Give some thought to the essays that are required. Spend a little time, write that essay, go back, rework it, have a teacher proofread it for you, have your parents proofread it for you, but really put some time into that essay. Interviews. If the school recommends an interview, you should schedule one. But I encourage you, please research the school, learn more about it, think about some questions that you want to ask during that interview. Okay? This is the best time for you to let your personality shine. So you really want to take full advantage of that interview opportunity. Okay, auditions and portfolios. They may be required for some programs. And this goes back to the same thing that we keep repeating. Once you develop that list of schools you plan to apply to, pay attention to those details of what is required, not only for the school, but possibly for the major that the student is applying to. Okay, next we're going to move on to fees and fee waivers. The cost to submit a UC and CSU application is $70 per school. The cost to apply to a private school, it does vary, so it depends on the school. If your student needs a fee waiver for any of the applications, please note, the UCs and the Cal States have the fee waiver request built directly into the application. So during the application, if it will ask you if you want to apply for a fee waiver, if you click yes, it's going to ask you some questions about your family size, about income, and then it will immediately give you an answer if you qualify for a fee waiver or not before you submit the application. So that's pretty nice that it's built right in. If you're using the common application, it will ask if you would like to apply for a fee waiver. If you click yes, it will ask you if you meet certain criteria. If you do, that request will be sent electronically to our School Links program, and then the counselor must verify that you meet those requirements to receive the fee waiver for the common application. Okay, EOP, I know Mrs. Mitchell covered this a little bit earlier, but let me just touch on the EOP program, Educational Opportunity Program, is historically for historically low income, educationally disadvantaged, and first generation college students. The application for EOP is once again, just like the fee waivers, embedded right into the UC and the Cal State application. So it's going to ask those questions. If that applies to you, we'll say, do you want to apply for EOP? And another part of that application will open up for you to complete. And once again, if that does pertain to you, I strongly encourage you to apply for the EOP program because it's a great program that will help you all throughout your college experience. Admission testing. Now, this is a big one that we've been asked a lot over the past couple of years. And it changes. It's been changing a lot. We often say it's been hard for us to keep up with this ever-changing dynamic of, do I need to test? Do I not need to test? And I'll go back to the same advice. When you develop that list, you need to look to see what their testing requirement is. Okay? If a school is test blind, it means the test scores are not factored into their admission decision. Okay? Test blind, they're not going to consider scores. If a school is test optional, It means test scores are not required to apply. Scores can only enhance your application, but will not hurt your application if submitted. However, and please hear this, students often say, well, I'm not going to test them. Here's what we found over the past year. Many test optional colleges look at test scores when awarding merit scholarships. So if you decide to not submit an ACT or an SAT, that could put you at a disadvantage. So what you'll want to do is confirm, do I need to take the ACT or SAT, even if they're test optional, because are they hinging those merit scholarships on submitting an ACT or SAT? So once again, look specifically at the testing requirements and what that means. The UCs and the Cal States do not require any admission testing. They are test blind, which means even if you submit them, they're not going to look at them. If you still need to take the SAT or the SAT or the ACT exam, you can still register. Just go to the Claremont High School website under counseling, and we do have links to both of those testing sites on our website. I do encourage you, though, if students, seniors are still planning on testing, that you want to try and complete your testing by November. Some colleges will not accept scores after that date. And lastly, on test scores, Claremont High School does not send official test scores. If students need to send their official test scores, they must go directly to the testing agency and make that request. Okay, now we're going to talk about transcripts. I know Mrs. Mitchell had mentioned this, but next week we will be meeting with all seniors performing our senior credit checks. At that time is when they're going to get an unofficial transcript. We encourage them to hold on to that because it's very important that they have that when they're applying to colleges. Many are going to ask, what courses did you complete this year? What grade did you earn? So it's really helpful to have that unofficial transcript to help you in that process. Okay, I know Mrs. Mitchell had mentioned this earlier, but when you're gathering that list of schools, not only do we want you to put that list together, but then once the students decide these are the schools I'm going to apply to, they need to add those schools into School Links, the program that we use. Once that school is added, then we as the counselor can send their official transcript to any schools that they're applying. So we want to make sure that students are adding their schools in School Links because that gives us the ability to go ahead and send an official transcript on their behalf. The UCs and the Cal States do not require, nor will they accept an initial transcript. So even though they might list as UC school or a Cal State, we don't send initial transcripts to them. Now you might be wondering, well, how does that work? For UCs and Cal States, it's all self-reported. The students, that's why they need the transcript. They're going to self-report all the courses and the grades that they've earned. Now students will always say to me, well, what if I lie? And I say that I got an A when I got a D. And I always say, well, at the end, you'll send your final transcript and they'll see that omission, and then they would rescind your admission if they've granted you admission. So you definitely want to be honest. You definitely want to be truthful. So all other colleges, though, besides the UCs and the Cal States, will require an initial transcript that will be sent. The counselors will send that at the time of the application. So once the student applies, counselors will go in and we will send an initial transcript by the deadline that is required. The mid-year transcript is sent after first semester grades have been posted to transcripts. Okay, so we have the initial sent at time of application, mid-year sent after first semester grades, and then we have the final transcript that we send. Now, the final transcript, we send one per student because obviously by that time the students know where they intend to go to school. And so we'll meet with them at the end of the year. They'll tell us what school, and that's where we'll send that final transcript. Okay. I mention this because we do have a flat fee to send transcripts. The flat fee is $20. That applies to all schools. So $20 will send transcripts to all schools. And that includes, that one-time fee will include initial transcripts, mid-year transcripts, and final transcripts. Okay. The one piece I want to mention, though, if a student has taken a class at another school, maybe through a university, or even one of our dual enrollment citrus classes, they must request the transcript from that program, that school, be sent directly to the colleges, especially like our dual enrollment, because they're receiving that college credit, it needs to come directly from them. So once again, this is all on our presentation. I've covered a lot of these. Next, we're going to move on to senior grades. Seniors, and I can't stress this enough, senior year really does matter. A lot of times seniors think, oh, you know what, it doesn't matter as much. I applied, you know, I only had to submit my grades from freshman, sophomore, and junior year, but senior year really is important. All admission decisions are conditional. So if you do not maintain the same level of rigor, if you do not maintain the grades that you've earned in the past, a college can rescind their admission decision after they've received your final transcript. Okay? So it's important that students remember they must maintain their grades and their academic rigor during the senior year. Something else I want to point out, in the senior year when students apply, because they're going to be applying over the next couple of months, it's very common that we have seniors come to a second semester and they'll say to us, I'd like to drop that math class. I'd like to drop that AP course. And as counselors, we always say to them, you know what, we can't drop it. When you apply to that college, you put on your application that you were taking that class for the entire year. If you'd like to drop it, you'll need to contact every school in which you've applied and notify them and get their permission before we can drop it, which is a lot of work. So in the end, we encourage our seniors, you need to stick with your classes for the full year, okay? Okay, so when will students hear back? Once our seniors apply, when are they going to get an admission decision? So after submitting your college applications, for if you've applied early action and or early decisions, applicants usually get a response as early as December. That's why some of our students like applying that early decision, early action, because they get that earlier response. For all others, if the student's applying regular decision, typically they're going to get a response in early March. Okay, community college. The next two slides, I'm just going to touch on community college and some key points here. Our California community colleges offer a great number of opportunities for our students. They have an open admissions policy with transfer programs both to private and public four-year universities, including priority transfers to the UCs and the Cal States. They also offer an honors program with a smaller class sizes and also enhanced transfer opportunities to the UC and Cal States. They also offer opportunities for athletes if they want to continue playing at the college level. Many of our community college have athletic programs. The community college also offers certificate programs. So maybe a student says, you know what, I don't want to go to a four-year college and get a degree, but I know I want to get some education. Our community colleges offer a wide variety of different certificate programs that students might be interested in. Lastly, I do want to mention our Citrus College Early Decision Promise Program. Some of you may have heard of it. For CHS students, because Claremont High School is considered a feeder school to Citrus College because we're so closely located. They have a special program called Early Decision or Promise Program, where students can attend Citrus for 2 years, absolutely free. You heard me correctly. 2 years, absolutely free. We're finding more and more of our students are choosing that option. Students, they may not be ready to leave home. Maybe they didn't get into the college that they wanted to go to. There could be all sorts of reasons. Maybe it's a financial reason, but we have more and more students that are opting to go to Citrus under that Promise program for free and then transfer to a four-year college, okay? We will provide more information on that as time goes on. Typically, I tell students, if that's something you're interested in, please share your name with the counselor. We pass that on to Mrs. Miller in our Career Center, and she works directly with Citrus to help those students because Citrus actually brings a rep out. They help those students with the application. They give them an advisement session. And pre-COVID, and I'm hoping we can go back to it, they would also bus the students over and give them tours of the campus. But that's the Promise program. Other community colleges offer the Promise program, but it's not quite the same as Citrus. And then also we're a feeder to them. okay? So that's why we promote Citrus, because we're a feeder to them, and this is a guarantee for our students. 6 of our UC campuses and all of the Cal State campuses have transfer agreements with our California community colleges. Students must complete 60 semester, 90 quarter units to transfer. So if you are thinking of that Promise program, just know there's a lot of great transfer opportunities out there. Okay, athletics and NCAA. If you're an athlete, a current high school athlete, and you are hoping to earn a Division I or Division II athletic scholarship, you must register with the NCAA clearinghouse, which is on the screen right here, okay? Once again, you must register with the clearinghouse if you're hoping to earn an athletic scholarship. Financial aid. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on financial aid. I know Mrs. Mitchell mentioned earlier, and I'm going to say it again. We have a night devoted just to financial aid that will be held on Thursday, October 27th. We actually have a financial aid expert, comes from one of our local colleges, and they come out and they will present to you and he'll answer all of your questions about the financial aid process. I think we are going to do that on Zoom again this year, but you'll still have the opportunity to get all the information and plus ask as many questions as you like. I also want to mention that we are going to have during our, I'm going to mention this in a few minutes, at our, we have our career fair that's coming up. We will also have a financial aid segment there for our seniors as well. Which brings me into upcoming events. So some of the, we know that this can be overwhelming. We know that it's a lot, and we're giving you a lot of information, but we also try and break it down and provide additional resources. So for example, starting on October 4th, every Tuesday and Thursday in the library at lunchtime, the counselors will be in meeting with students to help them with their college applications. Doesn't matter what application, come on in. It's a UC, it's a Cal State, it's a Common App, whatever. Come on in. We will be there every Tuesday and Thursday to help answer their questions and help them complete their college apps. Okay. I always tell my students, before you submit, please come in and let me look at it, because I'm going to tell you 9 times out of 10, it's wrong. Most kids are wrong. They don't do it correctly because it's confusing. I've been doing this 25 years. And I still have to often read it and attend and listen to the changes and all of that. So I encourage you to have your students come in and have one of the counselors look at it. I mentioned Career Day, October 12th. We'll have a college application lab and financial aid workshop for seniors. I encourage them to attend that. And then lastly, we have the college fair, which will be held on October 20th from 5 to 7 in the gymnasium. Yes, I know that's homecoming, but that was the date we were given. However, I look at it this way. Students will be out building the floats. Come on over, grab some college info, and go back to build your float. Okay, how can parents support their students? Because once again, I know this process can be overwhelming. I'm going to touch on a few pieces of information here. Okay, so the next 3 slides, like I said, we're giving you a lot of information. But what I really want you to think about is how you can help support them without doing it for them. So I encourage you to set aside some time each week and talk to your senior about the college process. Okay? Discuss goals, talk about essays, help them get organized, help them stay organized, remind them of deadlines. Also, talk openly about finances. Okay? They're going to apply to a certain school. Is that something that you can afford? Okay? You need to be open and honest and have these discussions. I also want to, we do have a slide here about reducing anxiety because it can be overwhelming to students, especially this time of year because they're dealing with all their other activities, they're dealing with the applications, and they just have a lot going on. So we've just given you some tips here. And then the slide I want to focus on is what can you do to really help them? Don't do it for them. This is really a process that they need to go through and they need to manage and they need to navigate. But you can help them stay on track. You can help them stay organized. You can remind them of certain deadlines that are upcoming. They will need your help on the FAFSA, okay? Attend a financial aid night. Get that information. That's something that they'll need help with that you can do together. If they're applying to private schools and you need to complete the CSS profile, that's something you can do. There's also a parent component on the questionnaires that we ask them to complete if they need a letter of recommendation. So those are all pieces, but I encourage you, if you break that down, it's a little bit more manageable. If they wait to the last minute, I guarantee they're gonna feel that anxiety, they're gonna feel overwhelmed. Okay, lastly, I just want, if you haven't signed up for Remind, my hope is most of you have. I know we have a lot of our seniors that have signed up, but I encourage you to sign up for our Remind. Before we hold any events here at school, we'll send out a remind to seniors. For example, reminder, today at lunchtime, we're going to be in the library to help you with college applications. Reminder, tonight is our financial aid night. So I encourage you to sign up. Your students probably have already done that, but this way you can also help remind them about upcoming events and important information that we send out through Remind. Okay, I'm going to say it one last time. This PowerPoint and this live stream will be posted to our website. And although right now, because we do have the next group that's going to be coming in, but I want to be able to give you an opportunity to ask questions. As counselors, we are all going to be up in the main office all evening during back to school night, and we're there to answer questions. So if you do have some questions, I strongly encourage you to stop by, come see us. We'd be glad to talk to you and answer any questions you may have. So on that note, I just want to thank you all so much for coming, and please try not to feel overwhelmed. We are here with you. We are here to walk you through this process, and we're here to support you every step of the way. So thank you for coming, and have a great night.